A report here from Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in a recent column. This was a couple of days ago. Boston is exploring what it needs to do to keep Tyler Bertuzzi, who's slated to be an unrestricted free agent this summer. I'm going to start with Christopher Baker, Senior on Facebook, who's asking you any shot at signing Bertuzzi or Orlov. We'll get to Dmitry Orlov as well, but just kind of start out with Bertuzzi. As we've said before, Haggs, on this show, and I'm sure you've talked about and written about 1,000 times, great guy, quintessential Bruin. You'd love to keep him if you could. It's just hard. CLNS Media's Bruins coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.
Yeah, no, it's complicated, and that's why there's a lot of due diligence from the Bruins end that goes into, retaining a guy like that, because you've got to not only figure out how it's going to work salary cap wise, how are you going to be able to move some pieces to free up the space. You have to figure out, and Don Sweeney's been very good at this as general manager of the Boston Bruins, figuring out a way for him to take a little bit less than what he would probably take on the open market, because I think he's a $5 to $6 million a year player for the Bruins, and he's probably more than that if he gets to free agency, based on the playoff that he had, based on that he's only a year removed from scoring 30 goals. He's got some things that are working for him that I think, in the hard-nosed style, as you referenced, that makes him a pretty good, effective Bruins player, is going to be attractive to other teams. And really, the playoff, the way he played in the playoffs, he's one of the best Bruins forwards, most effective, led them in points, leading scorer in that first round series against the Florida Panthers. That's going to up his value if he gets to the open free agency and unrestricted free agency. So, when Don Sweeney had his end of season press conference, he made it fairly clear, and I was surprised he even said this, that they were hoping to retain one of the three rental players that they traded for at the trade deadline: Bertuzzi, Dmitry Orlov, and Garnet Hathaway. Hathaway, too expensive a luxury item on as a bottom six player on the Boston Bruins. Did not have a great playoff. I think you thank him for his service, and he's going to move on somewhere else. Even though he's a great local Maine kid, he's going to go some other destination. It's not going to be with Boston. Dmitry Orlov, I think too expensive. He's going to be able to get more in the open market. They have a surplus of defensemen. That's not really an area where they can afford to bring in even more players than they already have. Bertuzzi, they only have 7 forwards signed. They need to bring in some forwards. They need to figure out a way to get a couple of forwards, either retaining them or bringing them from the outside. Certainly, they're going to bring up young forwards as well, but they need forwards, big time. You add that to, he showed great chemistry, Bertuzzi, with David Pastrnak. I think that's something the Bruins are going to pay a lot of attention to, that he was setting up Pastrnak a lot, and that's of value, huge value to the Bruins moving forward. The fact he was so effective in the playoffs, and now not only in his first time in the playoffs at the NHL level, he was very effective for the Bruins. He also was an excellent playoff player in the AHL before he made it up to the Red Wings. So you look at that and you say, all right, this is a guy that's going to be effective in the postseason. That's a very high value to the Bruins. So there's a lot of reasons, in addition to him being a great net front guy on the power play. He showed that during the postseason and down the stretch as well. There's a lot of pluses and a lot of things you like about his game that I think the Bruins are going to want to retain him and bring him back. But, to your point, they're going to have to make moves to make that happen. They're going to have to get him to get with the program and take a little less. And, they're going to have to make sure that they, don't overload with a guy that is a winger when they still have centers that they've got to, figure out. The down the middle with Bergeron and Krejci, unresolved and undecided at this point. So there's a lot of balls up in the air that Sweeney's trying to juggle at this point, especially even weeks away from free agency right now. But I think Bertuzzi is a priority for them to bring back. And I think if there's one guy that they traded for at the deadline among those rental players, it's going to be Bertuzzi. And he should be a priority for the Bruins based on the way that he played.
CLNS Media's Bruins coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.